how do you get people to understand that they are deserving of health and this, state of love and gratitude when they continue to convince themselves about the past and cannot see or believe in a future greater than their past?
I'd ask them, how long do you want to tell that story? How long do you want to tell that story? Because you believe as if it's the truth, you behave as if it's the truth, and you've ultimately become it. That's the end of that person's emotional belief. I just want them to tell a different story. In fact, you can't tell me any longer that you've had a brutal past and you can't do this work. You can't tell me that. We've had some people with some really brutal pasts,
yes,
really, really difficult pasts. And we're talking about abuse, molestation, trauma, murder, veterans, Navy SEALs, people who've witnessed and seen really horrible things and had really horrible moments. And they had all kinds of health conditions. The trauma wasn't just in their brain, the trauma was in their body because it was the emotion that kept them in the past, right? And they couldn't get past that emotion. They tried everything, all the plant medicines, all the diets, everything. They just couldn't get past it. They just didn't know how to do it.
The memory. They couldn't get past the memory.
They just didn't understand why they were there and what to do to help them to get out, right? So many of these people that had brutal pasts also had really difficult health challenges. They had endometriosis, they had depression, they had night terrors, suicidal tendencies, blackouts, vertigo, ovarian cysts, all kinds of crazy things. And they did the work because nothing else was working. And many of them came to the point where they did their meditation every single day. Every day, they never missed a day because nothing else was working. They believed that this could work. They just didn't believe it could work for them.
Right.
So they were doing their meditations to actually believe, right? They had to change their emotional state, and they reached a point, and typically when they come to the week-longs, because I stretch people a little further, They were already feeling a little better. They were already doing better, but they reached a point where they just thought, oh my God, this is the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. I don't think I'd go any further. And then they think, oh my God, I've never missed a day in my meditations. I can't give up on me now. And they go one more time. And the words that we hear over and over again is always the same. It was like my heart blew wide open. It was like my heart exploded. It was like my heart opened up all the way. I felt something move through my heart, and I felt more love than I felt my entire life. And they look back at their entire past, and they don't want to change one thing in their past because the feeling that they have, they realize that they had to go through all of that to get to the present moment, and that's the moment the past no longer exists. And they look at their betrayers, they look at their molesters, they look at the tyrants, and they have nothing but compassion and love for them. And the relationship changes with those people, and the moment their heart blows open, the body literally comes out of the past, because when energy makes it to the heart, it resets the baseline in the brain and the autonomic nervous system for trauma. It says it's over. And the body literally moves out of the past. And the side effect of that, there goes the depression, there goes the endometriosis, there goes the night terrors. And the person they don't want to change anything in their past. They'll tell you, no. This all had to happen for me to change. So many people with diseases will say, I just didn't know it. I would have never changed. I would have never changed unless I had this health condition. I would have never changed. This was the push for me to change. And they would say, I was too sick to do their meditation in the beginning, but you know what? There were days they felt really bad, and they could have said, I don't feel like doing my meditation today, but guess what? They did it anyway. And they overcame their body a little bit more that day. And there were days they had a lot of self-doubt because their condition was getting worse and their family was worried about them, and they could have said, this is too much. I have too much doubt. I can't do this. Guess what? They did it anyway, and they overcame their doubt a little bit more.
Yeah. And
there were days where they had a lot of fear because they were given the voodoo curse that they had 6 months to live or a year to live. And they could have said, I have too much fear today. I can't do my meditation. But they did it anyway. Instead of surrendering to fear, they surrendered to love. And it was the overcoming process that was the becoming process. That is the unlearning process. And if 95% is how we're hardwired in terms of attitudes, beliefs, and perceptions, how we're habituated in terms of behaviors and actions, and how we're conditioned to our emotional responses, then there's going to take a lot of work in the overcoming process, because you got to get so conscious that you don't go unconscious again. And it's a process of going unconscious to the point where you no longer go unconscious and you stay conscious. You ask that person, where's the disease now? Where is it now? They'll tell you it's in the old person. It's the old guy. It's that person. It's that old person. It's not me. I'm not that victim anymore. I'm not that person any longer. And again, they were doing their meditations to change. They were doing their meditations 3 times a day, not because they wanted their meditations to heal them. They just defaulted back to the old self and they started disbelieving again. So they were doing their meditations every day to believe. And they would not get up until they felt the feeling of that future, because they knew consciously, if I could feel this emotion, I'm signaling genes ahead of the environment. And I'm going to keep feeling this feeling with the intention of signaling the gene. And that was their intention. Of course, they started producing a greater outcome. So they were doing their meditations to strengthen their belief 3 times a day because they lost their belief. Now, you can't say to me, you're too out of shape, or you're too in shape, or you're too unhealthy, you're too old, or you're too young. You saw we have people that are 12 years old or 10 years old that come to our events.
Sitting around.
We have hundreds of kids that come on the age of 25, a huge youth community. We have people that are in their 90s and their 80s. They have elegant brain scans. They have beautiful heart coherence. You can't tell me you're too old to do it. You can't tell me you're too young. You can't tell me you're too sick. You can't tell me you had a brutal past, or you're out of shape. You can't say any of those things any longer. I mean, no one's so special to be excluded from this process. And again, I think one of the things, I'm jesting part of the time here, but one of the things that people need is knowledge and information. I mean, the data that we have in our scientific research, it tells us that we're greater than we think, more powerful than we know, more unlimited than we could ever dream. The testimonials of people standing on the stage, you've seen them, with stage 4 cancers that spread to their bones, to their liver, to their lungs, to their pelvic organs. They couldn't walk. They were in so much pain. No drug trial, no chemo, no radiation, no surgery was changing, no diet was changing them. And now they're up there with no evidence of cancer. You hear that story, it's the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
Evidence is the loudest voice.
Yes.
And when you see a person that doesn't look vegan, doesn't look young, doesn't look buffed, that had people steal money from them, that they lost everything, they slit their wrists, they have horrible but bankrupt. They're worth millions now and they're living a happy life and they've got a great relationship and their health condition's all better. You got to scratch your head and you got to look and you got to say, wow, if that person can do it, I think I can do it.
Right.
And then there's number 2, and then there's number 3, and then there's number 4.
And there's thousands and thousands.
Now we had 7 people step out of wheelchairs in our last event in Denver. I couldn't believe it. With spinal cord injuries, with brain tumors, with head trauma, with myasthenia gravis, with MS, with ALS. I mean, it's crazy. It just takes one, and then collective consciousness. Now it's possible, right?
It's fascinating.
So a system then is compromised. The system breaks down. And so if it's physical trauma, your body can heal if you rest it. If it's chemical imbalance, you take your pharmaceuticals, or you take your nutraceuticals, your vitamins, your minerals, your